Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. Ivart Kingdom has long thrived thanks to the bounty of the great river that flows through its plains. In this land, there exists a special group of knights charged with maintaining order in the cities that spread along the river. These knights lords rule over the area and land alike, riding upon the majestic rulers of the sky. They are known as the Dragon Knight Corps. The bond between a knight and his dragon is something Ivart cannot do without. Because of that, poachers who capture dragons and sell them abroad have always been a source of concern for the kingdom. Melissa steadies the basket as the dragon attempts to snatch fruit from it, pushing his face aside and telling him that he cannot have any, explaining that the fruit is meant for the White Queen and that his master has already taken his share, which only makes him grumble in loud protest. She then turns to the other dragon nearby and asks whether he knows where the commander is, and when he shakes his head, she frowns and says he should already be here, especially with the departure ceremony about to begin. A man suddenly steps in and remarks that, if he did not know better, he would swear she was conversing with dragons, making Melissa look up at him and note that he must not have had breakfast either. He replies that the commander has not returned yet, saying he left to inspect the queen's new equipment and mentioning that he seemed to be in a very good mood, adding that the commander and the queen are probably already soaring high above them. Almost immediately, a dragon streaks across the sky in full splendor, and the man mutters, "Speak of the devil," while Melissa beams as she lifts her gaze. Apparently the White Queen they were discussing is the dragon herself as Melissa moves forward to hug her, smiling warmly as she welcomes her back. The rider tilts his head with an easy smile and comments that the two are as close as ever. Melissa smiles softly and welcomes the commander back as well. He thanks her but remarks that he will have to depart again soon, and she offers him the basket, reminding him not to rush into battle without breakfast and telling him that her mother prepared it especially for him. He smiles and says she is too kind, while Melissa watches him with a faint blush, thinking that the commander has always looked so effortlessly composed. Commander Hubert, whom the White Queen obeys, is set to be the strongest among the Dragon Knights. But she sees him as an elder brother who just so happens to be the master of her beloved White Queen. She hesitates before saying there's something she wants to discuss with him after he returns. When he asks, "Not now?" she replies, "No, there isn't really the time to get into it now, as the ceremony is about to begin." He replies lightly that perhaps he did linger longer than planned and concedes the point, adding that the mission should not take much time and that he will return as soon as he can. She answers that she would rather he focus on returning safely, then, after a brief hesitation, admits her worry and urges him to deal with the dragon poachers and come back in one piece. He meets her concern with a laid-back expression and says she can count on it. At that time, she had no way to know that his mission would take half a year. The dragon riders, envied by every knight in the continent, possess courage and good fortune in equal measure. Each one must enter a dragon's nest alone to find their future steed. Ultimately, it is not the qualities of the knight himself that determines how strong he will be at arms, but rather the color of the dragon he rides. A dragon's strength is always graded according to its color. Among all colors found in nature, the closer a dragon's color is to the sky, the stronger and rarer it is. Blue, the hue of the open sky, is followed by the white of clouds, then the purple of lightning, the green of mountains, and the amber of earth. Blue and white stand at the peak and are known as the supreme colors, dragons of such hues being exceedingly rare. She selects vegetables, assuming the dragons have returned and will need feeding, then adds sweet fruit, knowing they enjoy it after flying. Though dragons can seem intimidating, she has loved them since childhood, never tiring of watching their vast wings spread and lift them into the sky. She remembers running recklessly among them when she was small, the commander lifting her up in alarm and warning her not to do something so dangerous, only for the White Queen to lick her gently, leaving even the commander stunned by the dragon's sudden softness. Since then, the White Queen has held a special place in her heart, and the bond seems mutual. She approaches the White Queen with a smile and asks what she would like, prompting the boy beside the commander to remark that dragons usually allow only their masters to feed them, yet she feeds them all, likely because she has earned the White Queen's favor. The commander, slightly uneasy, wonders if the dragons rely on her too much, and the boy merely sighs and says that Melissa has always been hopelessly devoted to dragons. He watches her and then smiles ruefully, saying that is true. Time passes and one evening she finds herself thinking the White Queen is Melissa's precious friend. She really wants to tell her that she plans to leave the castle when she comes of age. In fact, she actually wanted to talk to Commander Hubert about that too. So why is he the only one who is not back yet? She doesn't have a recommendation from a noble, so even if she keeps working as a maid at the castle, she won't be hired after she gets married. She ended up discussing the matter with the head maid since there was only a month left before her coming-of-age ceremony. The White Queen is Commander Hubert's dragon until he can no longer fight. No, she is sure she will stay even at the castle, even after he is done fighting, until the end of his life. Such is the bond between a knight and a dragon. She wants to stay by their side forever. That's why she needs to get that recommendation so that she can work at the castle even after she gets married. In the fort's dining hall, all faces show shock as they look at Melissa. To be sure, the knight asks whether she is leaving the castle. Melissa swallows, caught off guard, and replies she is. She can feel their stares, unusual since they normally pay attention only to their food once the meal begins. Another knight quickly inquires whether she has obtained permission from the head cooks. Her parents work in the castle as her cooks of the castle fourth dining hall. There are a lot of hungry people who need to be catered to, so it is a battlefield in its own right. Her mother is the head cook and her father is her second in command. They live in the Arctic above the dining hall, and they're always ready to jump right to work whenever the knights need them. All the soldiers and knights who use this dining hall are like family to her. The soldier asks Melissa again if she is really leaving and whether she is qualified to work as a maid at the castle. She replies that she will turn 16 in a month, and if she stays, everyone will just coddle her. She wants to work hard and become a proper castle maid. Another knight frowns and interrupts, saying it is far too early and that they demand proof from anyone who claims they are as capable as the rest. A third hisses in agreement, insisting that they won't allow it. Melissa smiles and thanks them, explaining that instead of continuing as an apprentice until marriage, she wants to broaden her horizons, grow somewhere else, and become as respectable as the head maid. She will return only after reaching that point, which will allow her to serve the castle properly forever. The head maid has even promised to write her a recommendation letter, so she intends to give it her all. At that moment, a cook arrives and informs her that the commander has returned, asking whether she will greet him and, while she is at it, she requests that she bring vegetables to the dragon house. Melissa quickly excuses herself and leaves. The knights return to their serious conversation, one suggesting that the head maid probably knows where Melissa is headed, while another asks if Melissa really said the head maid would give her a recommendation. They just need to get some information from the head maid, the soldier adds, noting that it will probably be easier if the knights leave it to him. A voice interrupts, asking what exactly they are up to. They look up to find the dragon knights. The soldier informs him that they have a problem, it concerns Melissa. Meanwhile, Melissa reaches the dragon house. Melissa steps through the hallway, every glance drawing her to the treasures that line the walls. The dragons do have the habit of amassing shiny objects. Knights buy and give the riding dragons plenty of things, but amongst all their items, the dragons prize their masters' medals the most. It may be because they think that the number of medals their masters have determines their strength, but either way, these medals are proudly put up. And the throne of the so-called strongest of the generation, the White Queen. The White Queen should be there, at her place of honor, yet the throne sits empty, and Melissa's confusion grows at the sight. She wonders where the Queen has gone. A man appears behind her and asks whether something is wrong. Melissa turns toward him, a weight pressing on her chest, and mentions that the commander has returned, but she cannot see the White Queen. The man shrugs lightly and says that it appears she has flown off to the nest. Melissa halts, surprise flashing across her face. The nest? In the valley so remote and far away? She cannot imagine the dragon knights acting on their own. She asks whether it was an assignment, but the boy shakes his head. Before she can inquire further, a knight arrives carrying a basket and a painting brush, and her sudden startle shows plainly on her face. He looks warm, approachable even, soft in contrast to the commander she knows, yet somehow carries a quiet authority. She asks why he is here when the White Queen is not. He explains that the White Queen is not in a condition to leave the nest. With a forced smile, he adds that he had procedures to complete, so she dropped him off here. Procedures? Melissa repeats, her voice catching on the word, frowning in confusion. He elaborates that he must take over his house, has received his final paycheck, and has handed in his resignation. Melissa swallows sharply. Retired? The idea is almost unthinkable. Once someone becomes a dragon knight, they are bound to serve the country for life, alongside their dragon. To imagine someone quitting is beyond comprehension. She hesitates, repeating the word, her tone questioning and thick with disbelief. He casually confirms that from today, he is no longer a dragon knight. The news renders her speechless, her smile freezing in disbelief. When Melissa finally finds her voice, it comes out shaky. She asks whether he is really no longer a dragon knight. He turns his back to her and replies casually that he is not. Even so, he adds, he still has to bring all of this home, forget even one item, and it would be a massive problem. Melissa had never imagined that the Dragon Knights would allow the White Dragon Knight to step down, the one they all held in such high regard. Still unsure, she asks again, can he truly stop being a Dragon Knight? He explains that his house has special circumstances, approved by the king, so there is nothing that can be done about it. She presses further, asking what about the White Queen. He replies that he will bring her along, of course, she is connected to him, and she will follow him anywhere. It is not as if they have to remain knights to ride the White Queen, nothing has changed. Melissa studies him, noting the calmness in his expression. Looking sad, she murmurs, is the White Queen no longer returning here? But, he assures her, even if he's no longer a knight, it is only his position that has changed. The fact that he serves His Majesty doesn't change, and if he has business here, he can fly over, and they can meet. Melissa feels a pang of sadness, realizing that the commander must come from a family of high social status with no other successors. She cannot understand why, or else he would not be retiring. She then softly admits she's also leaving the castle. The items slip from his hands, Melissa crouches quickly to pick them up. While he stands there frozen, showing more shock than when he announced his retirement. 2 seconds later, he startles her further by pulling her closer, his sudden desperation cutting through the air. He reminds her that she is not yet of age this year and asks, almost frantically, if she is getting married. Melissa blurts out that there is no way, nothing has been decided yet, but she is going out to work as an attendant. He presses, asking whether it is somewhere near the castle. She admits that she is still unsure, though she thought it would be ideal to work in the household of a noble family. She lowers her lashes and explains that the head attendant is currently searching for a work placement for her. She cannot understand why the commander is so flustered. Even when she finishes and returns, it seems neither the White Queen nor the commander will be there. A shadow crosses his face as he clenches the basket handle and says he understands. Melissa notices the sudden change and calls out, but he runs off without replying. She stands there, bewildered, wondering what has happened. A week later, a lady asks her whether she will go through an interview at the castle before heading to the mansion. The soldier is still surprised that she is supposed to bring her parents for the interview, noting he has never heard of such a requirement. Melissa realizes her father, a former knight, has never heard it either. She then looks at the group of knights watching her and asks why everyone is here instead of at work. The knights scramble for excuses, one claims it's a tea break, another swears they're on night duty, and a third mutters something about being off today. Just as the explanations pile up, the door opens and a lady steps in, her presence cold and commanding, her cold aura immediately making everyone straighten in their seats. She greets them curtly and glances over the knights, asking briefly how everyone's work is going before declaring that shooing them out would be pointless, they may stay, if they wish. Melissa watches her quietly, thinking how cold she looks. The lady signals someone to enter, and in walks the Earl Wingriff of the Borderlands, or rather, Commander Hubert, now in full formal attire, striking and unfamiliar. Even the knights exchange subtle glances, and Melissa realizes it is the first time she has ever seen the commander in formal dress. The lady asks if anyone needs an explanation of the family, and he waves it off lightly, saying he has been commuting here for 10 years and there is nothing she needs to hear. She turns to Melissa and states flatly that the Earl has agreed to take her on for her new position, which is why he has been brought here. Hubert announces that he has been granted the title of Earl today, explaining that he had intended to arrive earlier, but the head attendant insisted on proper formalities first. The head attendant mutters that is quite obvious. He turns toward Melissa and takes a step forward, telling her she will serve as an attendant and should follow him. He mentions that his mansion is in a rather unusual location, so it requires someone capable, someone like her, otherwise no one else could manage. Melissa asks what he means by someone like her, and he blinks slightly before offering the faintest smile. Does she not know what the Borderlands are like? He asks, and Melissa recalls that it is the very place she had studied to pass her attendant training and qualify to work at the Dragon House. If she remembers correctly, the Borderlands Earldom, known as the Valley of Dragons, lies on the western edge of the kingdom and is a special territory that acts as the dragon safeguard. It protects the Valley of Dragons and keeps the area surrounding the kingdom in check, securing the major roads connecting to neighboring countries. It also bears the responsibility of the Dragon Knight selection ceremony. He replies exactly. If she thinks about it from a professional standpoint, it is an obvious thing, but his family has a mansion right by the valley where the dragon's nest lies. That is why they come in masses. She asks what does. His eyes meet hers as he declares wild dragons. Her eyes widen. Well, that is troublesome. Dragons are intelligent creatures, but they lack restraint. They are also brimming with curiosity. All living beings are toys to them, and humans are no exception. Hubert warns her that should she panic or scream, they will instantly attack her, simply to amuse themselves. A tamed dragon's master can stop it, but if they try to stop a wild dragon, it will only want to toy more. In short, it would be a risky job for someone who has never dealt with dragons. Being able to tolerate dragons is the minimum requirement to work at his estate. That shouldn't be an issue for Melissa. He tells her that if she comes to work for him, her pay will be twice that of an attendant at the royal palace, which immediately leaves the knight stunned. He adds that since the work involves dragons, she would also receive a hazard bonus. That said, because dragons frequently fly over the city, there are no recreational facilities, so the job itself would not be very lively. It is a quiet, even lonely place for a young girl, but if she is fine with that, he asks how she feels about it. Melissa thinks it over briefly. For most people, it might feel a little depressing, but the thought of seeing dragons every day turns it into something wonderful. She smiles and says she would love to work for him. As he walks ahead, she watches him, thinking that seeing the commander in formal wear makes him seem like an entirely different person. He sits down on the steps and remarks that coming here really calms him. She smiles and says it would be a shame for his clothes to get dirty when he looks so good in them. He sighs and says he personally dislikes wearing such frilly outfits, but he believes White would find them appealing. She replies that the White Queen does like loose clothes. Any lace or knitting that gets too close to the sleeping quarters tends to be forcibly removed by her. Looking exhausted, he mutters that he has no desire to be stripped the moment he enters the dragon's quarters. She simply says that then they will have to think of different formal wear. Her gaze drifts around the space, and she notes that everything is gone. He confirms that he had to take it all back, stuffing everything into a chest that will be transported on the carriage he is riding. Slightly surprised, she points out that he is returning by carriage instead of riding the White Queen. He claps his hands together, shoulders hunched, and explains that White is not flying at the moment. She is currently caring for the egg of his eldest brother's dragon. Melissa's expression tightens with concern, prompting him to explain that his brother passed away, and as a result, the dragon bound to him died as well. Dragons are powerful, but when the human they are tied to dies before old age, they cannot survive it. That dragon had still been in the midst of incubation when his brother died, and soon after, the egg was stolen by a poacher. White tracked it down, stole it back, and has been guarding it ever since at the nest, which is why she cannot leave for a long period of time. Melissa starts to ask whether it was about the commander's brother, but he answers before the thought fully leaves her mouth. Yes. He had known his brother was sick, but he never thought it would end that way. Everything that followed moved too quickly. His retirement, the transfer of his title, his return home, all approved within a week, despite how unusual that was. Melissa thinks back to how exhausted he had looked then. Seen in that light, it makes sense. Losing a family member and being forced to step away from what he once considered his life's work would break anyone down. And yet, at the time, she had been pleased with herself, occupied with the thought of becoming an attendant. The memory unsettles her. Her gaze drops, and heat pricks faintly at her eyes, more from embarrassment than sadness. He notices. His attention shifts to her at once, and he asks what's wrong, telling her there's no need for her to cry. She says she didn't know. He takes her hands without thinking and tells her she has nothing to apologize for. These things take time to come to terms with, and it was his fault for bringing them up on her coming-of-age day in the first place. When he asks her not to cry, she denies it quickly, cheeks flushing, and he adds that, in truth, her timing is fortunate. After a moment, he asks whether she could help him. It's not something he would have brought up if she hadn't come of age. He looks away as he speaks, explaining that he needs her to pretend to be his lover. She goes still. He panics and blurts his brother had a fiancée. The engagement was meant to bind their families, and now there are attempts to pass her on to him. That is something he refuses to accept. Realizing the closeness, he reacts immediately, releasing her and stepping back. Melissa asks why he cannot simply turn the marriage down. He says he has. But when dragon bonds are involved, the dragon's will carries more weight than formal arrangements. White openly dislikes the woman, enough that forcing them to meet would only cause problems. Melissa asks whether he told her that honestly. He did, but she wouldn't listen. The fiancé had lived with his brother for 2 years. She insists that since his brother's dragon accepted her, then White will as well, if he persuades her. Melissa murmurs that is impossible, isn't it? There is no way that a dragon will come to like a person that they hate. It is a common topic concerning dragons. If a knight is dispatched with someone their dragon isn't fond of, they take care to change their routes in order to avoid one another. He lets out a slow sigh and admits that, yes, it really is impossible, and Melissa can understand. The fiancé shut him out completely, and to be honest, he doesn't have the capacity to deal with both her and White at the same time. If White is calm, everything becomes easier, so even that alone would help him more than she might think. He assures Melissa that if she doesn't want to go along with his request, that's fine. The offer he made back in the dining hall still stands. Her position, her salary, none of it will change. But if she does accept, then he will take care of everything else himself. She asks, bluntly, if her work at his residence is to play the role of his lover. He answers just as plainly. Entertaining the dragons that come and go, and acting as his lover, making it clear to others that the two of them live together. Those are her main responsibilities. Both matter, and both are roles only she can fill. He asks if she's sure she can manage 2 jobs at once. She reminds him dragons have always been around her. That seems to amuse him. He leans a little closer, a teasing smile crossing his face, and says that if they are going to live together, he would be more concerned if she didn't prioritize the dragons over him. That, more than anything, is why he can't accept a fiancé who wouldn't. Melissa nods, saying she understands, and accepts his request without holding back. Later, she stands before the commander's mansion in the borderlands. A small smile touches her lips as she says quietly that they've finally arrived. A month later, she sits at a cafe drinking hot tea, reflecting that the journey to Kota had taken its time. It has been a month since she made that promise with the commander and completed her training at one of the wingref villas. She expected it to be tough, but it was really exhausting to travel by carriage for a week straight. As the waitress serves her food, she remarks she seems tired and asks if she is traveling. She replies yes, she's heading towards Earl Wingrif's manor. The waitress's voice grows slightly uneasy as she asks what business Melissa has here. Melissa answers calmly that she has received a job offer and will be starting work soon. A woman seated nearby cuts in, saying she doesn't mean to speak ill of the place, but honestly, Melissa shouldn't work here. Rumor has it the current Earl doesn't listen to his servants' complaints and spends his days fooling around instead of doing his duties. With wild dragons roaming the area, even the lady of the household couldn't stand it and left. Melissa listens in silence. Playing around? Her thoughts drift, unbidden, to the commander. No matter how she turns it over in her mind, the image doesn't align with him at all. She wonders why such negative numbers like that are spreading. What in the world is happening? Melissa's attention drifts to the sky, where a swarm of dragons swoops above. Villagers scream and scatter in panic. A carriage barrels down the street, nearly striking her. Heart hammering, she freezes, then strong hands lift her off the ground. She gasps, clutching at the arms that hold her steady. It is the commander. He tells her firmly that she cannot let people handle her so easily and explains he has come because the plans have changed. Without hesitation, he pulls her into the carriage, seating her on his lap. She asks if he came for her, calling him commander, and he reminds her he is no longer a soldier. Tentatively, she calls him Earl. He frowns, saying it feels strange. Flustered, she tries master. He shakes his head. Panicking, she blurts, Lord Hubert. He smiles and approves, saying that sounds good. He tells her she will be introduced as his fiancée, so calling him Earl or master would feel odd. She questions whether, as his employee, she should really call him that. He reassures her it is fine, everyone who has been working there for a while calls him by name. The carriage driver shouts that the dragons are chasing them. Hubert tells him to circle for a bit, then climb the hill once the dragons draw near. He checks on the horses. The coachman confirms they are calm and unafraid, not fatigued. Hubert instructs him to maintain the current speed and circle once more. Melissa asks if all the dragons are pursuing them. He replies that it would actually be better if they did. She wonders if there's a place to land them all. He says half could fit in the front yard, letting them land near the town would terrify the villagers and stop the town's functions. She asks why so many dragons have gathered. He answers casually, they have come to see her. Shock freezes her hand midair. He explains that White told them about her, and in the valley, all dragons recognize White as the top of the hierarchy. Since she is White's closest friend, they have gathered to greet her together. Melissa thinks about the rough greetings she endures whenever a new dragon knight arrives and feels a thrill run through her. He's right, this is different. He warns Melissa that before she greets the dragons, there is something he needs to brief her about. Melissa murmurs, before that, her position, shifting uncomfortably in his arms. He apologizes for not noticing, and the faint, knowing smile he gives makes her heart flutter. Once she settles on the opposite side from him in the carriage, he explains that it is sudden, but as soon as they arrive, he will need her to act as his fiancée. Melissa nods and says she understands, then cautiously asks if there is anything she needs to pay attention to. He replies that it is a good question, though he does not know. During this 1-month period, the fiancée has been staying at the manor, and he has been avoiding her as much as possible. Because of that, he has not been able to do any work checking on certain matters, and this is the very least he can do. Then his point shifts. He recalls that he needs to warn her to be cautious of the lady's manservant. He admits he does not know if the man is intentionally hiding it, but he is a hunter, and he does not conceal the killing intent in his gaze. Melissa looks surprised and remarks that going from a hunter to serving a noble is a drastic and bold career change. He observes that it is not simply bold or rustic. Normally, even if a hunter changed jobs to become a servant, it is unclear where they would be placed. On top of that, putting a young single man near a young single woman is even stranger. His eyes harden as he states that he can only assume there is an ulterior motive. He has already informed the butler, but Melissa must ensure she never ends up alone with the hunter. If she thinks she is in trouble, she should not run further inside the house, but move outside instead. Melissa repeats, quietly, that she will stay outside. He confirms, adding that if there are dragons nearby, they will report to White. If it is the front yard of his house, there is a high chance that a dragon will be sleeping outside. He also says that if the hunter or his lady approaches, the dragons will flee. Melissa, shocked, asks if the dragons truly do not attack, that they just run. He confirms that they avoid them, though White may strike, while the other dragons keep their distance. He admits that he does not understand how his older brother tolerated the presence of those two. Melissa just doesn't get why the queen harbors such hatred toward that fiancé. He lets out a sigh and says that it is no good. As soon as he considers it, White becomes irritated, and she will not allow him to even ask about them. The consciousness of the knight and dragon are constantly connected. She's pretty sure that the queen hasn't rejected Lord Hubert's thoughts once ever before this. Melissa murmurs that this is too much, her voice small as she wonders if the queen will truly be in a better mood with her by his side. Hubert assures her she will. She is even saying to hurry up. She wants to show the queen the egg, and the thought makes Melissa's eyes brighten instantly. She wants to see the dragon egg. When they finally arrive, the sky teems with dragons. Melissa looks up, her eyes widening, thinking there are far more of them than she expected. Even Hubert admits that it is quite a lot. She asks him if all the dragons came when he arrived, and he replies probably, giving a sharp whistle that makes the dragons respond immediately. She thinks it must be a song shared only between him and the dragons, one she cannot hope to understand by listening. Some of the dragons begin to land, and he says he had them rearranged by color, though there are still so many. Melissa asks about the purple and green ones, and he corrects her precisely, purple and blue-green. According to their ranks, he says, there won't be any arguments. Melissa nods, noting that it makes sense since they are also separated by eye color. The White Queen's eyes match the blue of the sky, a clear sign of royalty. She steps forward, holding a basket of vegetables and greets the dragons and tells them she will be working here from now on. She feeds them vegetables, cooing at how well-behaved they are. Hubert remarks that there are still wild dragons around and that most people wouldn't describe them as well-behaved, but Melissa is too caught up in excitement to listen, and he can't help but smile. Soon, some knights rush forward, their faces alight with awe at seeing the dragons so close. Their attention, however, quickly shifts toward her. Puzzled, she asks Hubert why they are looking at her so intently, and he replies that the dragons are paying her a lot of attention. She lifts her gaze to the sky as the first batch of dragons departs. One knight steps forward, his excitement barely contained, saying it was amazing, he never imagined he would see dragons this close. Another adds, sparkling with enthusiasm, that he came here to bond with a dragon and become a dragon knight, and seeing so many dragons gathered like this is truly incredible. One of the knights steps forward, holding Melissa's hand with a mix of awe and disbelief. He says the dragons are incredibly obedient. He has only heard stories of how terrifying they can be and is surprised to see them behave so calmly. Hubert's voice comes quietly from behind, saying he will call the next group. Melissa is too focused on the knight to respond, prompting Hubert to guide her hand gently, turning her to face him. She frowns and asks if something is wrong. Hubert says that nothing is wrong and asks if she still has treats to hand out. She says there are carrots and other vegetables. Hubert tells her that he will call the remaining green dragons next, and that more vegetables will be brought by a maid once the batch runs out. He instructs the knights that this is a chance for them to try as well, and that compatible dragons will approach from a certain spot. As the second batch of dragons returns, one dragon stays and approaches a knight deliberately. Hubert watches quietly, noting that they are a compatible pair. Melissa watches, heart pounding, feeling as if she might witness the birth of a dragon knight. The air suddenly shifts, charged with electricity. Without warning, the dragons all lift into the sky. Melissa freezes and whispers, barely audible, what is happening as they vanish into the clouds. Hubert's expression hardens instantly. He pivots sharply, eyes locking on the girl standing nearby, her smile composed. Melissa's stomach twists as she recognizes her, the fiancée of Lord Hubert's late brother, far more striking than she is. Hubert's voice cuts through the tension, low and sharp. How many times must he repeat that she is not to step anywhere near him? The girl tilts her head, unmoved. Hurtful words to his fiancée seem expected, she says coolly, and why is he holding that maid? He tells her to watch what she says and declares she is his lover and she has received his dragon's blessing. Melissa swallows hard. She did not expect it to be this bad. Hubert tells Eleanor that her scent brings great displeasure to his dragon, and that the dragons of the valley are restless. She cannot go near and provoke his dragon, whom they revere as their queen, or risk disturbing the entire clan. He leans slightly forward, irritation flickering across his face, and reminds her that he has asked repeatedly, yet she does not seem to grasp it. Are her ears only for hanging jewelry, or merely for decoration? Even the knights glance at one another, taken aback by the sharpness in his tone. Lady Eleanor, her face pale, falters under his gaze. Her guard steps forward, a steady hand on her shoulder, urging her to remain calm. Melissa watches silently, recognizing the guard as the hunter she has heard about. Hubert remains unmoved, his posture rigid, his voice even but firm. As they all witness his dragon, the White Queen, and the other dragons approving his chosen companion, he declares that preparations are underway for their engagement, and he insists they leave immediately. Eleanor's lips tremble with desperation, her voice rising. That is outrageously selfish, she snaps. She will not allow this. This marriage is meant to unite the Ashburton and Wingriff families. How dare he disregard it so casually? Desperation flares through her, her fists tightening at the thought that he could treat the arrangement as trivial. She would have had no objections if he had taken her as his mistress, yet he casts aside every expectation. Is he serious? Hubert doesn't budge and states first there is no engagement to break. It has not yet been reported to the government. Eleanor presses harder, even if it hasn't been reported, she is certain a contract binds their families. If it does not exist, then how could any unmarried lady be permitted to reside in another family's house without consequence? He calmly says the contract that she speaks of hasn't been properly arranged. Not to mention, he already has a lover. And since he is a dragon knight, marrying anyone who is not acknowledged by his dragon is impossible. Having assumed his position earlier than expected, it is only natural that he changes decisions made by those before him. Eleanor states flatly that she refuses to believe that. Lord Raymond once said that as long as someone was the dragon's master, persuading their dragon was possible. The moment she questions him, asking whether those words were a lie, Hubert's expression tightens. He asks what exactly she means. Did his brother truly persuade his dragon? If she is claiming that his brother's dragon was swayed and genuinely accepted her, then he is certain the marriage would have happened long ago. There would have been no reason to delay it. Her eyes sharpen as she snaps back, demanding to know what he is implying. Hubert counters calmly, asking whether she ever met his brother's dragon face to face. His brother was gravely ill, his body weakened by disease. Did she truly interact with the dragon during that time? She admits that after he succumbed to his illness, she never once saw his dragon again. She begins to speak, frustration coloring her words, almost labeling the beast as cruel, but stops herself midway. Melissa watches in stunned silence, unable to believe that Eleanor would even think of speaking that way about a dragon. Hubert continues, his voice firm. He heard that his brother had been unable to ride his dragon for over a year. Even at a great distance, dragons are creatures that sense the condition of their master. A dragon tasked with guarding an egg would never abandon it simply to visit a weakened master, much less push that master beyond his limits. Such a thing would never happen. He then asks her directly whether his brother ever asked her to meet his dragon. Unease crosses her face, and for once, she finds herself without an answer. Hubert takes that silence for what it is. If his brother truly loved her, but his dragon did not approve, then he would have accepted that marriage was impossible. And if she still attempted to proceed despite that, then the outcome would have depended entirely on the dragon, but more likely than not, the wedding dress would have become her burial shroud the moment the ceremony began. The truth is simple and unmistakable. Without a dragon's consent, an engagement cannot exist. If his brother had tried to protect her, he would not have been able to. Dragons are far more intelligent than humans give them credit for, and they possess their own understanding of human bonds and marriage. They will never permit someone they reject to become their master's spouse. And his dragon, the White Queen, is far more prideful than his brother's. There is no possibility, none at all, that she would ever accept Eleanor when he already has a lover she herself acknowledges. Never. The condition for becoming his wife is simple, approval from his dragon the White Queen and her blessing. Nothing more. That is all. He won't approve of anyone besides Melissa, and he has no intention of taking her as a mistress. If she values her life, she should leave before his dragon arrives. Eleanor's eyes narrow, anger sharpening her gaze. She responds curtly, asking if that is truly the case, then turns on her heel and leaves without another word. Melissa watches her go, unease stirring. She wonders whether Eleanor truly came here only for that reason, yet something in her eyes suggests otherwise. Hubert states coolly that regardless, as long as neither he nor White accepts Eleanor, she has no place here. Still, Melissa cannot help but wonder whether Eleanor understood any of it at all. Hubert adds that if she refuses to leave, then he will simply have to resort to another method. Without warning, he pulls Melissa closer, holding her firmly against him. Heat rushes to her face as he turns his attention to the knights and remarks that they, too, will face difficulties finding wives should they become dragon knights. These days, the greatest concern of a dragon knight is finding someone their dragon deems worthy. Inside the manor, Melissa walks beside him as he guides her through the halls. Her gaze drifts upward, taking in the decorations and the paintings lining the walls, and she admits that it is incredible. Dragon motifs fill the interior as well, everywhere she looks. Hubert explains that in his family, many are chosen by dragons at birth. The lady of the house had been deeply obsessed with dragons, and over time the residence naturally became filled with their imagery. Melissa stops in front of one painting and points to it, noting that she has seen it before, in a book she read in the dining hall. Now that he thinks about it, Hubert realizes she truly likes that picture book. She always seems to have it with her. Flustered, she tells him not to mention it. He explains that 2 generations ago, the wife of the family had recreated several of the artworks displayed here and later compiled them into that very book. It was donated to the dining hall after someone heard of her fondness for dragons. Her cheeks color slightly as she smiles, admitting that she really does love that book. His gaze softens, and he looks away, clearing his throat. He remarks that whenever he offered to read her something, she would always choose that book without hesitation. He believes several copies still remain and instructs his servant, Harry, to fetch one. He means to give it to her. A lady soon arrives and greets Melissa, explaining that she received a letter from the palace's head attendant in advance. If Melissa has any questions or needs assistance, she should not hesitate to ask. That appears to be her cue to step away, as Hubert says they will speak again after dinner. The maid leads Melissa to her room, and the moment she steps inside, awe stills her breath. She praises the space at once, calling it a gorgeous room and thanking her for preparing something so spacious and elegant. The maid explains that Lord Hubert mentioned Melissa's fondness for dragons, so the room was arranged with dragon motifs, though she personally thought flowers might suit her as well, hence the wallpaper. Melissa reassures her with a gentle smile, thanking her for the thoughtfulness, and it slowly dawns on her that Lord Hubert must have prepared this room specifically for her. That must be why the dragon and floral decorations are woven together so naturally. The maid agrees, admitting that once they saw the finished room, they briefly wondered whether choosing just one theme might have been better. Melissa shakes her head, insisting it is perfect. She admits that while she does like dragons, many of her personal accessories carry flower patterns, and she apologizes for the trouble they went through. The maid giggles, clearly reassured. She adds that the other attendants will be introduced during dinner and advises Melissa to rest until then. Left alone, Melissa sinks onto the bed and exhales slowly, thinking how the day feels like an endless chain of surprises. At dinner, her heart pounds as the household staff line up while she eats beside Hubert. Relief washes over her at having learned proper table manners. Hubert introduces them as the employees of the household, noting that only the cooks remain, as they are still in the kitchen and will introduce themselves another time. Melissa rises from her chair, offers a polite bow, and promises she will do her best to encourage the dragons to visit. The butler remarks that it is reassuring to have someone young like her joining them. Hubert then asks about the person from earlier. The maid replies that Eleanor's attendant has begun gathering belongings and, judging by appearances, they will be leaving within a few days. Hubert releases a quiet sigh of relief and voices a simple, finally. Melissa silently agrees. Now her duties will be caring for the dragons and handling other chores. With Eleanor gone, there is no longer any need to pretend to be Hubert's lover. The realization should comfort her, yet for some reason, a faint disappointment settles in her chest. She stiffens at the thought. Disappointing? The question catches her off guard, and she quickly shakes it away. Her attention snaps back when Hubert explains that her responsibilities will include tending the dragons and assisting him directly. He admits there is something unsettling about how easily things are resolved, that the situation leaves him uneasy. Melissa offers him a soft smile, thanking him for the opportunity and saying she will do her best to learn. He responds with an apology, stating that none of this is her fault, the problem lies with him. As soon as he turned 15, he became a dragon knight and went to the palace. Since then, he hasn't done anything to cultivate a proper social life. He was strictly ordered by his mother to start over and learn from square one. Melissa remembers the moment clearly. The instant Lord Hubert caught sight of the tutor's face, he bolted, running straight out and escaping into the front yard. Naturally, the dragons must have been there. No one can enter the dragon enclosure unless the dragons themselves acknowledge the person, and so no one was able to bring him back. Worse still, they couldn't stir the dragons into excitement, which meant they could not shout for him either. The entire situation left everyone helpless. She asks Hubert whether he already knew the White Queen during those days. He answers that he did. They bonded when he was only 1 year old. The bond formed the day he fell from the second-floor terrace while gazing up at something white flying overhead, and she saved him. Melissa is certain that incident must have terrified everyone involved. Still, she thinks that any dragon would have saved Lord Hubert in that situation. Hubert says that this time is different. He understands his position now, and he will not run away again. Besides, he adds lightly, if he were to run off, Melissa would come after him, wouldn't she? She responds without hesitation that of course she would. Later, almost casually, without fully looking at either of them, Eleanor mentions that her remaining personal belongings will be collected a day later. With that, she offers a simple farewell and nothing more. Melissa wonders aloud whether Eleanor was truly here for political reasons. Hubert pauses and asks what she means by that. Melissa says it may be because Eleanor was actually in love with him. That is the most likely explanation, isn't it? Hubert answers that if that had been the case, White's reaction would have been entirely different. A faint unease settles in Melissa's chest. She cannot quite name it and wonders what it is. The next morning, Melissa wakes slowly and sits up, still half wrapped in sleep. She approaches the window, noticing that the room seems a little darker than usual. For a moment, she wonders if the sky is cloudy today. But the truth reveals itself immediately. The dragons. Their enormous bodies are hovering just outside, blotting out the light as they crowd together, clearly waiting for her. Melissa lets out a small, startled sound and tells them she will bring their snacks right away. Then it hits her, they are perched on the terrace. She hurriedly shoos them away, waving her hands and scolding them gently. The terrace might break because of their weight. She hurriedly gathers the vegetables and makes her way down to the grounds. That is when she spots Lord Hubert. He is already there, training. Melissa stops without realizing it and simply watches. Now that she thinks about it, she has never actually seen him train before. He was always coaching other people, She gasps softly when he suddenly calls her name, the sound jolting her out of her daze. He asks if something is wrong. He gestures toward the cart beside her and casually comments that the dragons are eating from it. Melissa turns in alarm. Her eyes widen when she realizes everything is already gone. Completely finished. He asks if she is alright, clearly noticing how she had zoned out. She apologizes quickly, her voice flustered, saying she did not realize they had eaten everything already. He reaches out and pats her head lightly, the gesture natural and unthinking. He asks if it might be because of the long journey, if she is exhausted. She stiffens when he points out that her face has turned bright red. He asks if she is certain she does not have a fever and tells her not to worry about her duties for today. He insists that she should rest. Panic flares. She blurts out that she is fine, absolutely fine. It is just that she is embarrassed, she has not made a mistake in so long that it caught her off guard. Before he can respond, she practically flees while calling out that she will make sure to work hard today. As she hurries away, she tells herself to calm down. What was that just now? Why did she react like that over something so small? She forces her mind back to her schedule. Today's plan begins with feeding the dragons, which she has already managed, more or less. Then there is cleaning, followed by serving Lord Hubert. Mr. Harris also mentioned there would be a dance lesson today, and she wonders uneasily whether she will be able to manage that as well. When she arrives at the dance session, Harry greets them with a bright smile. He says they have been waiting and that it is wonderful to see them arrive right on time. He adds that, compared to previous occasions, this is absolutely amazing, and that Melissa truly is incredible. She does not understand what he means at all while Hubert tells him to stop. Melissa comments that the reception hall is very nice. With so much open space, she thinks practicing here will not be too difficult. Hugh then glances down at her outfit and asks whether she intends to dance in those clothes. She answers honestly that yes, she does. This is the closest thing she owns to a formal dress, and it is also much easier for her to move in. He rests his fingers against his chin, thinking, and asks whether she did not order any dresses while she was in the capital. He is certain he told the tailor that he would cover the cost of anything she ordered. Melissa apologizes softly and explains that she did have a ceremonial dress made but she did not order anything beyond that. He pauses, then asks her what exactly is wrong with the ceremonial dress. Ceremonial dresses are made for rituals and significant occasions, so mobility is never their priority. Traditional style dresses are especially ill-suited for dancing. As she explains this, it clicks for him. Her uniform, designed from the beginning with movement in mind, is far better suited for practice. He mutters thoughtfully that the heavily decorated dresses young noble ladies wear to parties must be incredibly difficult to dance in. Before Melissa can respond, the maid smoothly intervenes. She says that it would be more accurate to say such dresses are designed with how they look while moving as the main concern, rather than practicality. She adds that even if a dress is made but not worn immediately, it loses its value entirely if it falls out of season. With a playful grin, she teases that it looks like Lord Hubert will need to be educated on women's attire before marriage. He visibly shudders and tells her to spare him. Then, with a more thoughtful tone, he comments that it is troublesome if they continue thinking about everything only in terms of dragons, the way they have until now. The maid says the White Queen was far more difficult to deal with, so she is confident everything else will be fine. He answers seriously that dragons are actually easy to identify. They do not change their appearance, so distinguishing them is simple. She senses that she understands what he is trying to say, even if he has not said it directly. His expression grows sober as he continues. He asks why noble ladies try so hard to distinguish themselves through their dresses, yet all wear their makeup the same way. Even when their clothes differ, their faces look identical to him, and he cannot tell them apart. Melissa looks up at him, genuinely wondering how he perceives the world. The maid promptly declares that she believes he has a serious illness. Melissa forces a strained smile and says that it truly is not all right, it is devastating to watch. He grows gloomy at once and mumbles an apology under his breath. The maid then points out sharply that he keeps stepping on Miss Melissa's foot whenever he turns. She tells him it is not a lift, and stepping on a woman's foot is outrageous. From now on, she warns, she will be much stricter. He accepts this grimly, realizing he has an overwhelming amount of practice ahead of him. Melissa, however, smiles encouragingly and tells him they will do their best together. He apologizes to her and asks if her feet are all right. She answers that she is fine. A faint smile appears on his face. He says that, if that is the case, he was thinking about seeing White soon. He asks if she thinks she can manage it. Melissa's face lights up. She beams and replies that she can and that she cannot wait. As he helps her down from the carriage at the market, she comments on how nice the weather is and asks whether the dragons will come again like last time if she is gone for too long. He replies that the fact she hands out vegetables at the estate has already become common knowledge, so they will not visit without her permission. After a brief pause, he adds that most people in this town are involved in war-related professions and tend to stay on edge, so it would be better if they held hands. She looks up at him, startled by the sudden suggestion. She tells him she's already an adult so she won't make trouble. It's okay. He clarifies he is treating her like a child. It is simply a knight's duty to escort a lady. Her face warms despite herself, and she hesitates only a moment before taking his hand. As their fingers lace together, she wonders what exactly is happening. She feels like she's being coddled. Once they start walking, she shifts the topic herself and asks whether this is where he usually buys gifts for the White Queen. She suggests white flowers or something similar. He replies that he has been told White wants decorations for her sleeping quarters, but nothing like that can be found here in Kota. Fresh flowers are unavailable this season, so the idea had to be abandoned. He adds that he wished he could at least give something made of cloth. She tells him she actually brought a gift from the capital, a hair ornament carved in the shape of the Queen's favorite magnolia. She explains that White is usually pleased with anything she gives her, but since it is wood, it does not sparkle. She mentions she will order something nicer with her next salary. Instead of commenting, he takes the ornament from her hand and says it is perfect. Unsure, she asks if he truly means that, uncertainty written plainly on her face. He assures her that she understands White better than anyone else, and asks why she doubts herself. Then, almost casually, he tells her to wear it and places it in her hair himself. She stiffens. For a moment, she is caught in his gaze without meaning to be. He notices and calls her name, asking if something is wrong. Her face turns red, and she thinks there must be something wrong with her. She has been acting oddly ever since Lord Hubert touched her. She pulls away at once and insists she is fine. She promises to make more flowers next time and quickly asks whether White would prefer a flower crown or a bouquet. He replies that White would probably enjoy a flower crown, adding that it would be even better if she made one for herself as well, so they could match. She immediately agrees and says she will make plenty of flowers and buy vegetables too. He explains that a few shops here sell supplies for entering the valley, but most places are bars and inns. There are not many sights he can properly show her. Even so, she looks around with open excitement and tells him it does not matter, she is already having a lot of fun. Melissa can immediately tell that this town was built to coexist with dragons. Every shop structure, even the roofs and walls, uses the same black stone as the palace. The color black stands out sharply for flying dragons, allowing them to recognize from a great distance that this is a place they shouldn't land. As they continue their walk, they buy some wuji tables, and Melissa remarks on how lucky they are to have received extras. Hubert explains that business had been declining because the dragon knights hadn't appeared for over a year. Even if the dragons never approached the estate, as long as people ventured down into the valley, there would be commerce. Melissa nods, thinking that if the dragon knights hadn't been stationed here, the town's value would have continued to drop. Hubert adds that some drama caused by his family disrupted the town before, so now he just has to do better. She tells him she will be there to support him, making sure all the dragons in the estate gardens are fed and content. He reaches for her, but just before touching her, he withdraws it and moves forward, ignoring the moment. Melissa notices immediately. Lord Hubert pulled his hand back, perhaps because of how she's been acting. She softly apologizes, unable to face her. He tells her there's no need to apologize, in fact, he hasn't been treating her properly as a lady. Concern flickers across her face as she asks if White will be upset. He asks how much she thinks he will be blamed if it's his fault. She insists he hasn't done anything wrong. He counters that if that's the case, she should speak to White in his defense, otherwise, White will lecture him the entire day. Melissa nods, acknowledging she should hurry to see White. Hubert assures her that the White Queen is surely waiting. Back at the mansion, Harry apologizes for the delay, explaining that while 2 horses were prepared for the carriage, one has become unavailable due to an unexpected problem. Hubert shrugs, saying that if it's going to take this long, they could have spent more time exploring the shops. A small inconvenience, he remarks, but such things happen. People who travel between the valley and the city must travel by carriage. As a rule, if nothing is done about the lack of suitable horses, the people who are in the valley won't be able to return home. As there was no inn next to the valley, they had to remain where they were watched over by the dragons. She can imagine how much of a problem it would cost. When Hubert calls her name, Melissa looks up. He suggests going for lunch, since there is still time. She admits that she brought some food, expecting they might have eaten in the carriage. Hubert replies that in that case, why doesn't he prepare some hot drinks? There is some water inside, isn't there? She confirms that there is. She also mentions that she brought tea leaves that they could use to make tea if they boil some water, and offers to prepare some for him if he would like a hot drink. Hubert tells her that it is all right, then adds that actually there is something he would like to ask the staff here, instructing her to wait inside while he finds a staff member. He explains that he needs to confirm whether the trouble with the carriage was caused by a person or a dragon. Depending on the cause, the army might have to get involved. He tells her to stay inside the inn, as it will be safer and there should be no arguments there, and reminds her to make sure she does not go outside. Melissa nods, understanding, and waits inside, her thoughts racing. She tells herself she should be seeing the White Queen soon, but an uneasy feeling lingers. Suddenly, footsteps echo in the quiet room. Melissa looks up, and to her shock, Eleanor appears, her expression icy as she says coldly that Melissa really does not know her place. Melissa notices her servant standing nearby, a silent witness, and Eleanor adds that she has never heard of an attendant waiting while their master is working. Melissa instinctively stands up. Eleanor sits on the sofa and casually says that if an attendant is not educated, there is no way they could become the wife of a noble. Eleanor continues, saying she wonders if Melissa cannot help being conceited, and instructs her to listen carefully. Even if Lord Hubert says he will welcome her as a wife, a little girl like her cannot become a countess, even out here. Eleanor explains that Lord Hubert does not know what it takes to manage a domain, which is why he can say ridiculous things like taking her as a wife easily. This domain needs someone who can govern in place of their husband, but that is impossible for someone like her. Melissa's stomach tightens. She senses the weight of Eleanor's words as more than a mere insult. They are a calculated attack, aimed to undermine Hubert indirectly. Eleanor then asks if she knows what kind of work her mother-in-law is conducting right now, and whether she understands what this domain needs and how to best cater for it. Melissa remains silent, her pulse quickening, knowing she has no permission to speak. Eleanor mockingly reminds her that she is just an attendant, before asking again if she is listening. Melissa swallows hard. Eleanor's final words land like a challenge. Melissa must decline Lord Hubert's proposal herself. Finally, the valet speaks, telling her that they must be off. Before leaving, Eleanor glances back, her eyes sharp, and says she won't do anything if Melissa leaves, but if she decides to stay, well, let's just say there is much that can happen to a woman. She needs to be careful. With that, Eleanor disappears. Hubert rushes in, cursing under his breath that they got away. Melissa greets him calmly, her expression composed, though her heart still races. He quickly hurries to her, apologizing for being late, but she insists there is nothing to worry about. Hubert exhales sharply, saying he never expected them to be here in Coda, and apologizes for putting her in that situation. He asks if they said anything. Melissa replies quietly, confirming that, just as he predicted, Eleanor told her to refuse his proposal and leave. Hubert falls silent, the weight of the encounter pressing down on him. Later, over tea, Melissa says that just the water would have been enough, glancing at the food, and says that had been his original plan, but he felt he should do more for her. Melissa's thoughts drift back to Eleanor. What could she be plotting right now? A knot of worry tightens in her stomach, but she tells herself that it should be okay, as long as her time with Hubert continues just a little longer, even if it is a selfish wish. As they go into the mountainous forest, the dragons stand at a distance, and Hubert observes that they seem to have noticed her presence and appear intensely interested in seeing her. He grips her hand firmly, warning that the path becomes a lot steeper from here on, and instructs her to hold on tight, to which she replies softly that she will. As he keeps his hand around hers, he wonders aloud what that woman in Coda actually said to her, and Melissa jolts at the question, but he continues, noting that she had told him what he expected, yet it wasn't all she said, was it? She murmurs that she expressed that what the family needed was a wife capable of ruling the domain in his place, and he simply acknowledges that he understands. She continues, adding that she had questioned if Eleanor was aware of what his mother actually does, and Hubert asks if Eleanor had responded, to which Melissa replies that she did not ask for an answer, and even if permission had been given, she would not have been able to speak. She apologizes to him for not being able to act as his lover, admitting she was not good enough, and Hubert asks why she feels the need to apologize. She explains softly that she wasn't capable of taking on that role, that their marriage might be for status rather than love. Hubert presses, asking why Eleanor seems so fixated on the estate, whether her obsession stems from his older brother, and why she disguised herself to warn Melissa, and Melissa wonders aloud if his brother had waited for his dragon to approve Eleanor for all those years, to which Hubert admits he might have risked everything on a slim possibility, but even if that were true, Eleanor would have needed to compromise her mindset. At the very least, his brother would have been unable to choose between his dragon and his wife, so he would have instructed her to learn instead, and she agrees silently, feeling the same. Suddenly, he calls her name and lifts her into his arms without warning, and she blushes violently, blurting in surprise, asking what he is doing, and he repeats firmly that she must stay put until the path becomes very narrow, assuring her that he would never drop her and that she only needs to hold on tight. She clings to him, her body pressed against his, remaining silent, and he remarks approvingly that she does not make a fuss even in this dangerous situation, warning that dragons are watching and that she cannot afford to attract their attention. He explains that even 2 dragons observing is equivalent to receiving an invitation to play, and that despite his skill as a dragon knight, a fall from this height would be fatal. A memory surfaces of her childhood, when he first brought her close to a dragon and instructed her not to scream, because dragons immediately detect dishonesty in a human expression, and that to gain their trust she had to smile when happy and cry when sad. She suddenly recalls and tells him he taught her everything she knows about dragons, and he smiles at her nostalgic words, commenting that she was already excellent as a child. She adds that she had even taught him that dragons can sense lies instantly, and that happiness or sadness must be shown honestly, and he confirms, gazing at her with intensity. She freezes, her heart pounding, realizing that the real reason she wanted to stay at the castle was not just to be near the White Queen, but to stay by Hubert's side forever, the man who always stands vigilant beside the dragon she adores. Every time she learns something about dragons, she gets closer to him and has fun. Every time she's allowed to stand by White Queen and when she's allowed to be next to him, she feels so proud and happy. She doesn't know when she stopped thinking of him like an older brother or role model. She doesn't know when he became so dear to her. Suddenly she asks him if he believes she is worthy enough to stand by a dragon. He smiles and replies of course she's going to be always with the White Queen, isn't she? He finally pulls her down once they reach White's nursery, and the moment her eyes adjust, she sees White curled protectively around a massive egg. The instant White notices them, she raises her head, golden eyes locking onto Melissa. She breaks into a run toward her and hugs her, telling her she had been waiting to see her, that she truly missed her. Hubert adds calmly that White must be glad she came to visit, because White has been calling for her repeatedly, restless. Melissa turns her attention to the egg, staring at it with open awe. He admits to Melissa that he wishes to ask something of her, explaining that he wants her to touch the egg and pray for the baby, so that it can be born safely because it seems the baby hesitates to hatch after losing its parents. She answers without hesitation that she understands, and gently draws the egg closer, wrapping her arms around it as if to shield it. She prays quietly, hoping the baby will emerge safely and without fear, and when her palms rest against the shell, she feels its warmth, along with a fragile heartbeat. She speaks softly, telling the baby that everyone is waiting for it, herself included, that it is not alone, and that one day it will spread its wings and fly freely through the open sky. She adds that the White Queen loves magnolia flowers, and that she looks forward to learning what this baby will like as well, convinced that it will love the color of its own scales, because every dragon's scales are beautiful. As those words leave her, a sudden sound cuts through the stillness, a sharp crack splitting the egg, making her eyes widen in shock, and through the fracture, it appears, clear and radiant, like a perfect blue sky on a cloudless day. The closer a dragon's color is to that of the sky, the stronger and rarer it is. A dragon that is blue like the sky is considered to be supreme ruler of all dragons. She flinches hard in shock, a blue dragon. While she is still frozen, Hubert turns sharply toward White, demanding why she brought the hatchling here when she was supposed to conceal him in the ruler's den. Panic spills over Melissa as she blurts that it is probably because of what she said earlier, but even while clearly irritated, Hubert still pauses long enough to tell her firmly that it is not her fault, before his frustration rolls back toward White, his voice tightening as he remarks that if she wanted to fly so badly, she should have left the hatchling with another dragon instead. White answers with an indignant growl and Hubert grumbles that the baby has only just been born, and yet she's already causing trouble, after which White clicks and rumbles again. He says so she has to keep an eye on the hatchling, she can stay with him in his quarters. The small blue dragon tugs insistently at the hem of Melissa's dress, startling her into asking if he is hungry, and at the mention of food he opens his mouth wide with startling enthusiasm. She blinks, murmuring that he already wants solid food, then hesitates as she recalls that he has grown from the size of a large egg to nearly a small bear in only 3 days, wondering nervously whether he can truly eat vegetables whole now. Being a blue dragon of the highest rank only makes the pressure worse. If she fails to feed him properly, the line of dragons expecting their turn will only keep increasing. Unable to decide, she looks helplessly to Hubert, asking what she should do, but he is already glancing downward in thought before saying he wants his snacks to be served whole, but White said she should cut them into smaller bits. He hands her a knife and she immediately begins cutting the vegetables into careful pieces. A thought strikes her and she asks whether this little one usually eats like this. He says he just eats the insects and small animals in the valley. She asks even though he's a dragon baby. He replies yeah, he is fed with prey that matches his size. She reaches out to run her fingers affectionately along the White Queen's scales, thanking her for allowing her to see the baby dragon, admitting that she thought she might never be allowed near him again. To the dragons, the sky is something very special. A dragon that has the blue color of the sky is certainly held in the highest regard by his kin. She tells him his blue scales are so lovely. That rainbowy shimmer of white scales is lovely too, of course, but his just captures the beauty of this sky so perfectly. Yes, it might have a lot to do with the fact that a blue dragon is supposed to be rare and strong, but that's not the only reason. It is also because every dragon is in love with the open sky. Her thoughts shatter when a sharp cry rings out, and she spins around to see the hatchling rolling across the ground after being kicked aside by White, making her tremble as she protests that he is a baby dragon born only 3 days ago and surely should be treated more gently. Hubert tells her not to bother, sighing as he explains that White insists the hatchling is her attendant and therefore must be raised strong, a meaning that takes a moment to sink in before Melissa panics and blurts out whether that means the newborn blue dragon is the White Queen's husband. Hubert answers bluntly that, in simple terms, yes, that interpretation would not be wrong, prompting her to argue that White is clearly much older, only for him to explain that dragons live for centuries and that White is roughly 30 years old, making them practically the same age by dragon standards, an explanation that leaves her stunned but unable to refute it. Still, she insists that even so, he is just a baby, only to hear Hubert remark that it looks like the other dragons have finally left the little blue one completely worn out after eating and playing. She agrees softly, noting that the hatchling is already sound asleep, and watches the dragons lift into the sky, hoping they will return again soon. 2 dragons remain behind, however, clearly interested in 2 potential dragon knights, and she realizes she may be about to witness the birth of new riders. Then Hubert, his expression darkened and distant, calls her name and asks her to come to his office after breakfast, saying there is something he needs to discuss with her, a shift so sudden that it takes her by surprise before she answers that she understands, unease settling quietly in her chest. He looked tired. Later, inside his office, he tells her that the coming days are likely to become overwhelmingly busy. By now, word should have spread through the castle that a blue dragon has been born. It is wonderful news, not just for humans but for the dragons as well, since they now have a new king. She responds it is clearly something to celebrate. She wonders why it would drive him into such relentless work. He does not answer directly at first, instead asking whether she finds it strange that despite the many dragons in the valley, some even younger and born in entirely different eras, they still follow strict rules when interacting with humans. She is taken aback and asks why that would be the case. He explains that those rules originate from an ancient pact formed long ago by another blue dragon, and when she waits, expecting more, he simply says that it truly is as simple as that. Unsatisfied, she asks who that blue dragon made the pact with. Those rules concern humans, so a human was involved, right? He replies. Indeed, the pact was made with the founder of his family, a man who bonded with a blue dragon roughly 140 years ago and became the very first dragon knight the world had ever known. The realization shocks her into silence, and he continues that a blue dragon possesses absolute authority over all dragons. Its orders will still be followed after it has died, even by newborn dragons. if such power is allowed to fall into the hands of a knight of questionable origin, the whole kingdom will lose face. In fact, that was what their founder was guilty of. Because of that, the royal family intends to establish a formal contract once he becomes a dragon knight, something they once attempted with the White Queen instead of suppressing the matter, though it ultimately failed. Now that a blue dragon has been born, the royal family will certainly send someone to the Margravate. As a result, both he and the White Queen will be deeply entangled in political matters, something he admits he cannot bring himself to look forward to. Someone from the royal family will likely come in person, and he cannot allow his mother to receive them in his stead, meaning he must go himself and remain in Kras for some time. Preparations must be made to welcome whoever is sent, and the neighboring countries have likely learned of the blue dragon already, which will bring further entanglements. As she listens, she clenches her hands, steadying herself, and when he asks whether she can continue tending to the dragons in his absence, she answers without hesitation that of course she can, since it is her role. He adds that the blue dragon will probably come to her again, and no matter what happens, she must ensure it never develops hatred toward humans. She repeats the words softly, unsettled, and he explains that although the blue dragon is still a baby, no one can predict when other dragons will start treating it as an adult. Right now the White Queen can still probably overrule him, but once he becomes an adult he will have more authority than her. If he comes to hate humans, it will be almost impossible to reason with him. There is also the possibility that all dragons will cut ties with humans. She might see the blue dragon as nothing more than a baby, one that had only just emerged from its shell, but she must not forget that he was still a king. A newborn, yes, but a ruler nonetheless. Hubert reminds her that she needs to pay close attention not only to him, but also to how all the other dragons behave around him. She understands. He then admits that he wishes he could stay behind and watch over them together with her. The thought of leaving everything in her care weighs on him. He apologizes for forcing her to shoulder all of this alone, but she softly tells him not to worry. This is precisely why she is here. While he is away, she will do everything in her power to make sure the dragons feel safe, welcome, and at home. The next day, she sees him off. Standing at the estate gates, she wishes him a safe journey, and before mounting his horse, he reminds her firmly to prioritize her health no matter what happens. She answers softly that he shouldn't push himself too hard either. For a brief moment, the weight of responsibility lifts as he cups her face gently, that he wishes he could have practiced dancing with her a bit more. Then he asks her, once all of this is over, if she will attend the celebration with him. There will be a formal gathering to mark his succession as the head of the family, and they will likely celebrate the birth of the blue dragon as well. He laughs, promising that he will keep practicing on his own so that the next time they dance, her poor feet will finally be spared. She smiles, cheeks warming, and tells him of course she will be there. As he finally takes the reins, he gives her one last instruction: make sure the dragons stay happy, but never overwork herself. If anything were to happen to her, it would throw the dragons into complete panic. She promises him she won't leave the estate. She will wait for his return together with the dragons. It has been a while since Lord Hubert left. Every few days he would fly back from cruise to check on the estate. But he was very busy, so he did not really have time to talk to her. If she met him, he would just say a few parting words and then fly away. She watches Blue flutter up into the air, letting out a few excited noises. Wow! He can already fly, she murmurs, thinking how quickly dragons grow. He's hovering right above the cart, staring down expectantly for snacks. She laughs and tells him she brought all kinds of fruit today. There's plenty for everyone, so they might as well eat their fill. Just as she's saying that, she pauses. The amber dragon, its scales glowing with that bright yellow luster, isn't anywhere in sight. Come to think of it, nearly half of the ember dragons are missing. What's going on? Before she can dwell on it, Harry approaches her, his expression unusually grave. He asks if he can speak with her for a moment and reveals that in a few days, the Dragon Knight Corps will be arriving at the estate, which means things will likely be far busier than usual. She blinks. The entire corps. Harry remarks she is surprisingly familiar with the people in their ranks, isn't she? She returns the smile. She has known them since she was a kid. Then, a little more softly, she wonders how they're all doing. But, what are they coming here for? She asks. Harry believes it's related to Lord Hubert's mission to eliminate the poachers. He adds that Lord Hubert also left a message: everyone on the estate is to be warned to watch out for poison. When Harry had asked what prompted the warning, Hubert explained about his brother. If a dragon's master dies an untimely death, the dragon dies as well. However, if the death is natural, something the master was born with, the bond is severed, and the dragon survives. His brother suffered from an illness, so if that illness had taken his life, it should have counted as a natural death. And yet, his dragon died too. No one knows which of them died first. That uncertainty led the people at the castle to investigate. Eventually, they found traces of poison in his brother's body and concluded that poisoning was the cause of death. Harry had pointed out that Lord Raymond was always under his dragon's protection, poison shouldn't have worked on him. But Hubert explained that his brother had to take medicine daily. Poison and medicine are two sides of the same coin. To the dragon, the act of drinking medicine was routine, harmless. Its guard lowered. The poison was likely administered in small doses, especially during the time the dragon was occupied protecting the egg it had laid and could not visit its master. That was when the most lethal dose was given. What they still don't know is whether he drank it willingly, or if someone forced it on him. He died just before they could completely hunt down the poachers. If poisoning was involved, it's hard to believe the two events aren't connected. Hubert finishes by saying the dragons have been unusually alert lately, they may be sensing that something bad is coming. If the poachers truly are targeting dragons, then the valley and this estate would be their most obvious targets. He's already ordered the soldiers stationed here to remain vigilant. Everyone else should be on high alert as well. He also wanted Harry to tell Melissa that if the dragons act strange, she should run away no matter what. If she gets dragged into dragons' battle, it will make it harder for them to fight. Harry tells her that she should prioritize protecting herself above all else, emphasizing that her safety is of utmost concern to Lord Hubert, and she stands there for a moment, caught off guard, before nodding softly and saying she will bear that in mind, still sounding a little uncertain. A few days later, Harry receives a letter and immediately has Melissa and the maid summoned, apologizing for disturbing them despite how busy they are and explaining that a carriage from Cruz arrived earlier that day to deliver the letter, adding that the coachman is familiar and has delivered correspondence there several times before, making him quite certain the man is a servant of the villain of Cruz. The maid reads the letter carefully and looks up, stating that it is undoubtedly the lady of the house's handwriting and that it even bears her signature, before hesitating and remarking that it seems odd she would ask Miss Melissa about the White Queen. Harry exhales quietly and agrees. Melissa frowns slightly and asks whether Lord Hubert is not with her right now and what the lady thinks her relationship with him is, prompting Harry to explain that according to their daily reports she has been told Melissa is Lord Hubert's lover, which is precisely why he ordered everyone to remain on high alert and why he doubts Lord Hubert would approve of her leaving the estate under these circumstances. When the maid suggests writing to Lord Hubert first, Melissa shakes her head and declares that she will visit Lord Hubert's mother herself, causing Harry to go pale as he carefully says he strongly believes she should wait longer and that he cannot approve, only for Melissa to calmly say she is partly at fault for coming all this way without visiting her even once, reasoning that if a woman she has never met claims to be her son's lover, it is only natural she would have questions and want answers quickly. She smiles, unfazed, and adds that there is a way to inform Lord Hubert or rather, the White Queen, since all dragons can understand human speech and some are intelligent enough to hold proper conversations with dragon knights, and the White Queen, whose tongue could cut Lord Hubert down in an argument no matter the odds, would certainly be capable of receiving a message. She confidently says that if she explains the situation to the wild dragons outside the estate and asks them to pass it along, they will do so. When the maid begins to bring up the birds, Melissa gently cuts her off, stating that the dragons there have already accepted her and will relay the message. She will pass word to them and go to Cruz the following day. She then gives them a radiant, reassuring smile and promises she'll return right after speaking with Lord Hubert's mother. A carriage lies completely overturned, its wheels twisted in the dirt, and a figure sprawled beside it, weakly calling out for help. Melissa shifts and slowly opens her eyes, wondering where she is and what happened. She was on the carriage, and the dragons wouldn't stop roaring for the longest time. Just when she had almost reached Cruz, the carriage suddenly stopped. Then a bunch of men burst in and dragged her out. They tied her up with robes and put her into a big sack. The last thing she saw was the coachman lying on the ground. She hopes he is okay. She becomes alert when she hears some people talking. Are they the men who kidnapped her? Judging from the voices, there are at least 2 men. One of them sneers, asking if she isn't the White Dragon Knight's lover and declaring that this is no time for dragon hunting. they need to get rid of her as soon as possible, only for another to snap back that overtaking his family is no longer possible, that whether his lover lives or dies he would never replace her with another woman. A third man lashes out, blaming the rest for how everything has gone awry and demanding to know how they plan to make up for the losses, prompting one of them to shout that he was the one who prepared the poison and that he miscalculated the dosage and the dragons noticed and uncovered it, and that this disaster is the result of that very flaw in his plan, which earns a sharp retort insisting there was no miscalculation at all and that things only went wrong because the other two, acting out of impatience, secretly slipped poison into the medicine themselves. Still, he adds bitterly, they managed to capture the gull carrying the white dragon's blessing, so how could he not use her to stage a dragon hunt when they have lost profits to recover? She remains frozen where she is, shock washing over her as she tries to piece together what she's hearing, realizing this can't be Kota since it would be heavily garrisoned and yet there's no sign of guards anywhere. She can hear dragons roaring, which means she must be close to the valley, and if so there should be dragons nearby. Lord Hubert had told her to run outside if she was ever in danger because the dragons would come, but if these people intend to use her to hunt them, the dragons that went to the estate before might actually land thinking that she will feed them. It's unlikely that any regular citizen in this kingdom would want to hunt dragons. They are practically treated like gods around here. The only ones who would want to do that are dragon poachers. The man who had spoken of taking over Lord Hubert's family had clearly used a male voice, and before Melissa can finish forming the one name that comes to mind, a woman steps into her view with casual ease and remarks that she's awake, making Melissa gasp and call out Eleanor's name in shock. Eleanor bristles immediately. She does not recall granting permission to be addressed so familiarly. Did not she tell her that she should know her place? Though she quickly waves it off and fixates instead on the white dragon's blessing, asking Melissa why she doesn't simply order another dragon to bless her as well, suggesting the newly born blue dragon would suit her perfectly. Melissa begins to tremble and softly says she doesn't think that's possible, explaining that she has never received any blessing herself, has no right to ask for one, and that the blue dragon, being the highest ranking among them, would never accept orders from someone who isn't its master, such behavior being nothing but disrespectful. Only for Eleanor to mutter that she doesn't care what Melissa thinks and that her role is simply to obey, bitterly demanding to know why a mere maid like her could receive a dragon's favor while she could not, and sneering that Melissa should just call over a dragon and have it grant one again. Melissa cries out, insisting she has no idea what Eleanor is even talking about, that she doesn't know what this so-called blessing is and never did, but Eleanor snaps at her to stop lying, declaring that every woman married into the Wingriff family was blessed by a dragon and bore children for dragon knights, that only dragon knights could become heirs, and therefore their wives must carry a dragon's blessing, something she believes Melissa possesses. Melissa, shaking harder now, counters that Lord Hubert's brother was not a dragon knight at all, that he merely lacked the strength despite meeting the qualifications, and that Lord Hubert succeeded him regardless, which sends Eleanor into a twist of fury as she screams that Melissa must have a dragon's blessing or else he would never look her way, striking her across the face and ordering her to call a dragon immediately. Dazed, Melissa wonders who Eleanor means by he, just as Eleanor's valet shows up, reminding his mistress that she has already been told she has no chance and asking whether she's forgotten, making Melissa suspect he is the man Eleanor is obsessed with, though Eleanor insists it's not too late, that she only needs to marry into the Wingriff family since this girl carries the blessing of the highest-ranking dragon in the valley and could simply command it, only for the valet to cut her off, stating flatly that she can never be blessed again because she killed a dragon's master and was therefore cursed. Eleanor shakily denies killing him, claiming she never forced the poison down his throat and that it was he who gave her poison sweets day after day, to which the valet calmly replies that he never told her to put poison in the medicine itself and even warned her the dragon would notice and curse her, leaving her to whisper that she never believed the curse would truly happen. Melissa listens in stunned silence as the valet casually suggests they continue the conversation elsewhere. Eleanor's father enters and brusquely informs Melissa that she will write a letter stating she quit of her own free will, saying he is busy and wants this matter resolved quickly, adding that it will take time for the army to mobilize and that no rescue will come anytime soon, instructing her to write that she left the estate voluntarily and promising, as recompense, that she will be given work later if she cooperates, assuring her that no harm will come to her if she does as told. Melissa knows whatever she says here, it won't matter. He was the one who said that he would get rid of her. He tells her she has until the next morning to make up her mind. He expects she will make the wise decision, but she knows whether she lives or dies will depend on that valet. At the same time, Hubert's mother is informed that the carriage she dispatched was attacked, and with worry shadowing her face, she asks if they have any idea who might be behind it, only for her servant to reply that he does not before asking whether she sent out any letters 2 days ago. She thinks before saying that she did send one to the guild as part of her regular schedule and questions what that has to do with this, prompting another man present to say that must be it since the attacked carriage departed 2 days ago. She stiffens and insists she never instructed anyone to send a carriage, but the servant explains that the maid entrusted with the letter has not returned and that she claimed the delivery was urgent, which is why a carriage was dispatched in the first place, causing Hubert's mother to realize that the maid explicitly requested it and that it was attacked on its way back, at which point Hubert jolts in horror, understanding that Melissa must have been in that carriage, urgently asking where she is now and whether only the coachman was found or if anyone else was there. The reply comes that they don't yet know, as the coachman remains unconscious and has been unable to explain what happened. Hubert suddenly panics and blurts out that there should have been a girl in that carriage, 16 years old with orange hair, named Melissa, until his mother calmly tells him to steady himself and suggests having the royal messenger wait in another room. Turning to her, Hubert says that according to the White Queen, Melissa told the dragon she asked her to come here, which his mother flatly denies, pointing out that Melissa has the White Queen's approval and that if anything had happened to her, the dragons would already be in a panic and the entire valley thrown into chaos, not to mention how impossible it would be to receive a royal messenger under such conditions. The servant cautiously suggests the letter may have been switched, and even Hubert knows his mother understands dragons far too well to make such a mistake, especially when the White Queen is already restless and flying beyond the valley. She has located the carriage, found that the blood on it is not Melissa's, yet her scent unmistakably lingers, leaving the unanswered question of where she went. His mother suddenly instructs him to call the White Queen to him if he sees her, warning that she must be made aware of the situation because if left unchecked, she will surely go on a rampage, and he needs to intercept her before that happens, adding that the royal family's messenger will have to wait because the White Queen is dealing with an urgent matter. Hubert counters that this is equally urgent for the Blue Dragon, since the White Queen is its mate, and that this must take precedence over any contract, warning that if the White Queen refuses to come down, the other dragons will not welcome humans either, to which his mother responds that a dragon and its human master often share the same heart, that she can tell how he feels about Melissa simply by watching the White Queen, and he needs to be honest with himself and admit it. Hubert argues that Melissa has the right to choose whom she loves, and his mother agrees warmly, saying all he has to do is ask her how she feels before sending him off to make sure that she is brought back safely and unharmed. She then instructs her servant to find the maid who ran away and bring her to her by any means necessary. The servant says they have already begun a search. He then says, "Didn't Eleanor come here and make a racket on several occasions? Where is she right now?" He replies they do not know. She hasn't shown up since Lord Hubert returned. She couldn't become a dragon's knight wife in the end. A dragon's knight's wife must be chosen by his dragon and accept the dragon in turn. Lady Eleanor never accepted Lord Raymond's dragon. His mother says Raymond wanted to marry the woman he loved and tried to persuade his dragon, but in the end neither of them was able to accept the other. She wonders who would understand Melissa's true worth at this point. Eleanor might be in the know, but she cannot imagine her understanding the ramifications. That's precisely why she might think of Melissa as a hindrance. And that's why Melissa was kidnapped. The servant asks, "Isn't that odd? She's still just a regular girl. Yet her kidnappers went out of their way to lure her to a place with no dragons. They did not even hesitate to hurt the coachman. Her kidnappers seem to think she might be of use, but Melissa is just a maid to everyone else. There are very few people who know what her relationship with their family really is." In any case, Hubert's mother believes that Eleanor is somehow involved, and she orders that all dealings with the Ashburtons be terminated immediately, instructing him to gather the documents concerning the merchants she has been considering without delay. Meanwhile, Hubert returns briefly to his mansion, where he encounters Harry and the maid and tells them bluntly that he does not intend to stay long, having come back only because he has questions for them. The maid hesitantly asks whether something has happened to Miss Melissa, earning a cold glance from Hubert as he asks what made her think that, to which she answers that it was the only conclusion she could draw, since both he and the White Queen look utterly worn. Hubert then admits that the carriage was maliciously attacked and that Melissa's whereabouts remain unknown, causing the maid to jolt in fear, while Harry apologizes, saying he sensed something strange but still allowed her to leave. Hubert asks to be given the letter that told Melissa to come to cruise. Harry produces the letter and explains that both he and Helen examined it carefully and confirmed that the paper, handwriting, signature, and seal all belonged to Lord Hubert's mother, yet even so they found it strange that she would summon Melissa during a period when everyone was supposed to remain on high alert, prompting Hubert to point out that the maid who directly assisted his mother could easily have obtained the paper and envelope and would have seen her handwriting countless times on official documents, making the forgery entirely possible. Realization dawns on Harry as he murmurs that there must have been a spy among the servants, to which Hubert replies that the maid his mother usually entrusted with her letters is the most likely suspect, adding that both he and his mother had assumed any spy would be based in Cruz since there had been almost no personnel changes at the estate and the presence of so many dragons made infiltration nearly impossible, making it all the more unsettling that the spy had been right under his mother's nose this whole time. He adds grimly that the letter was convincing enough to fool even him, before Heidi asks who might have kidnapped Melissa, and Hubert answers that based on what he knows, it was likely people aware that the dragons keep a close watch on her and who saw her as a valuable asset, their goals seemingly having little to do with his family and everything to do with Melissa herself. As if she were merely his lover they would have demanded a ransom by now, meaning the target was her, not leverage. Few people are aware that Melissa was blessed by the White Queen, especially those who overheard his exchange with Eleanor when he first brought her to the estate, and had those individuals not all been present here now, he would have been far more suspicious, since the only ones who witnessed that exchange were the estate servants themselves. Just then a sharp voice cuts through the air, and Hubert rushes to the terrace to find a man below demanding that he come down and explain what is going on, leaving Hubert to murmur in stunned disbelief it's his men. Hubert lands on the ground from the terrace, greeting them with a calm, welcome, assuming they have all received orders to come here. A man crosses his arms and grumbles yeah, kind of, Hubert echoes kind of, and asks if he is sanctioned to take action. The man admits they are not. Finally, his anger takes the best of him as he curses Hubert and asks how could he let Melissa get kidnapped. The White Queen called their dragons, leaving them no time to receive proper orders, they nearly got deployed without them. Hubert explains that she might think that if she calls the dragons, the knights will ride them, not understanding that they cannot fight without orders. The man says he figures as much. Hubert asks if he is now the commander, and the man confirms, noting that out of the 28 knights, only 13, including him, have received orders so far. Hubert asks if the rest will receive theirs later, and the man confirms they should get them today. He explains that the royal family's arrival coincides with the birth of the blue dragon, and the knights have been lined up in the yard awaiting their orders when the queen summoned the dragons and there was no way to snatch the order documents from the chancellor, so they came themselves. Another knight waves at Hubert, calling him commander, and joking about the long time since they meet. Hubert smiles politely while the new commander repeats commander. With an edge. The knight backtracks trying to call him Hubert, but it doesn't sound right. Damn, such a pain. Hubert then requests him to lend him his aid. He smiles and says of course. He then turns to the knights and tells them the ex-commander will be in charge for now so they better follow his orders. One of the knights says will do and teases it is funny how he only got to be the commander for a half day. The commander reports that they have few leads on Melissa's whereabouts and notes that the carriage she was traveling in was attacked. Hubert confirms that the attackers probably had carriages of their own. The commander adds that they also have some understanding of dragons, as the White Queen would have informed the ex-commander, though it remains unconfirmed. Intelligence suggests that remnants of the dragon poacher group they had taken down are still active, and there is a possibility they are involved in Melissa's disappearance. Hubert considers this and admits that it is pure conjecture and could even be false, intended to divert attention. The poachers might want them to believe their hiding place is deep in the valley, far from where Melissa was taken. One of the knights calls out to the commander, prompting both Hubert and the commander to stare at him. The commander asks which of them the knight is addressing. The knight quickly clarifies that he meant the ex-commander. On his way, the knight reports seeing several large carriages traveling through the wasteland, far bigger than typical carriages from the area, likely belonging to the poachers. Hubert asks for more details, and the knight explains that the carriages were far from Corda's main road, heading toward the valley, observed by some dragons. He suggests that Hubert could send dragons to intercept them, noting that the group cannot travel quickly together, making it possible to catch them. The commander mutters about which target might be a decoy, questioning whether Melissa is being used as a distraction to capture dragons, or if the intelligence itself is false and the real goal is to kidnap Melissa. The commander grumbles at the audacity of anyone daring to abduct the queen's allies in the land, and Hubert remarks that only fools could commit such a reckless act. Hubert suggests that they split into 2 teams, one will search for Melissa, and the other will investigate the intelligence regarding the poachers. He instructs the team looking for Melissa to focus on places where people could stay temporarily. The commander asks Hubert if he has the authority to arrest anyone, and Hubert reminds him that he is the ruler of the land. If someone commits a crime there, he can arrest and punish them. That is why they cannot allow the kidnappers to escape this domain, otherwise, he would have no power to stop them. He winks and adds that they need to hurry. One of the knights points out that Hubert is not saddling the queen, and Hubert explains that all knights are required to saddle their dragons for safety, but he is no longer a dragon knight, and dragons should never need saddles to begin with. He notes, impressed, that he can calm an unsettled dragon without one. Hubert confirms that he used to do this before becoming a knight in the capital. The knight then asks how Melissa will ride his dragon without a saddle, since she has never done it before, and wonders if perhaps Hubert has already flown with her in the sky for a date. Hubert glares at him and he says Why the annoyed look? Has he not made any progress with her since she came here? For a moment Hubert blushes and admits that he thinks she sees him as a man now. The knight asks what that means, but Hubert cuts him off sharply, saying that now is not the time for that discussion. Hubert tells him that dragons dislike flying at night. Tame dragons are an exception, but most wild dragons return to their nests once darkness falls. The knight realizes that if the kidnappers wish to avoid dragons, they would hide during the day. Hubert asks how far the kidnappers could have traveled if Melissa was taken in the evening. The knight replies that all they can do is split up and search for places where the kidnappers might temporarily stay. He mounts his dragon and signals the direction his team will take, focusing on the distance between the road to Coda and the site of Melissa's kidnapping. He notes that the kidnappers seem to have a good understanding of where wild dragons roam. Hubert stiffens when a voice suddenly cuts through the sky. He looks up and notices the dragons behaving oddly. He glances at White, wondering if she sensed the sound as well. Meanwhile, Melissa awakens. She wonders how she managed to sleep when she was supposed to be thinking about what she should say to Miss Eleanor's father. Hunger settles in too. She knows she needs to ask a dragon outside to notify Lord Hubert of her location, but she cannot tell the dragons to save her themselves. They would be hunted down by poachers, and everything would be for nothing. As long as she does not provoke them, she believes she will remain unharmed due to her blessing. She hears the faint cries of dragons nearby, though they sound weary. Perhaps they have noticed the presence of people, and that might work in her favor. The moment Eleanor's man steps inside, Melissa goes on alert. He abruptly yanks at her robes, demanding she stand, and begins dragging her along. As she is pulled outside, her gaze lifts to the sky. The sun is already high. Just how long has she been here? The man snaps at Eleanor's father, asking if he understands how great a loss this is for him. Eleanor's father tells him to stop and reminds him that it is in their best interest to end this quickly. The man sneers and replies that he is talking about his best interest because that is all he cares about. Melissa realizes even more time has passed than she thought. It does not take her long to recognize the valley. Her expression tightens with fear when she spots one of the amber dragons flying overhead. Eleanor's valet begins shouting orders, urging the men to ready their weapons. Melissa shudders and asks what the weapons are for. The valet explains that he heard the Dragon Knight's Corps cannot take action right now, but it appears their hideout has been discovered anyway. His men spotted a large group of Dragon Knights in the sky earlier. They planned to flee while the knights were still searching the hideout, but if things continue like this, they are bound to suffer major losses. At the very least, he intends to make those knights suffer. He forces Melissa to stand at the edge of the cliff. She asks what he intends to do. He gives her a cruel smirk and asks if she can imagine the look of agony on their faces when they discover her body and a dragon's corpse lying below. Dragons are usually captured alive, killing them brings a curse. Still, killing one is easy enough. He says he will kill a dragon right now, just to prove it. He reminds her that she is with them. If they kill a dragon, she will be cursed as well. Even if she survives, she will never be able to become the White Dragon Knight's wife. What better revenge could there be than ensuring he can never marry the only woman who can be his bride? He sneers that they have lost their positions and comrades because of the White Dragon Knight, and since she is his lover, it is only fair to take out their hatred on her. Melissa realizes this has never been about profit. The man's only desire is to make Lord Hubert suffer. His true goal is simple, to curse her, or to kill her. Suddenly, Eleanor grabs his hand, pleading with him not to do it, insisting that if he kills Melissa, she will never receive a blessing. He reminds Eleanor that he already told her last night, she can no longer receive any dragon's blessing. Eleanor insists that Melissa already has the greatest blessing there is. He counters that she no longer has any chance. Melissa may have received a blessing from the highest-ranking dragon bonded with a human, but a human can only be blessed by a dragon when the person it is bonded with marries. Dragons mate for life, they will only approve of a human's lover once. Her opportunity vanished when the previous Margrave died. Eleanor protests, refusing to accept it, but he explains that everything would have been perfect if she had married and obtained the blessing and power through the dying Margrave. Everything went wrong because she followed her father's instructions. If she had listened, the Margrave would still treasure her now. Eleanor desperately reminds him that the Margrave claimed to love her. He acknowledges that he did love her, she could have married into the Wingriff family and he could not, and that was the reason he loved her. Eleanor points out that he promised that if she were blessed by a dragon, they would marry in secret. He quietly explains that a woman with a blessing ensures her children can call dragons to their side, a godsend for dragon poachers like them. If he had such children, he would have raised them with love and care. Eleanor's eyes widen in disbelief as she realizes she was tricked. He insists he did not deceive her, he would have been fine if she could have won the White Dragon Knight's heart. But he already has a lover with a blessing, and Melissa has no more use. He begins dragging her along. Melissa realizes Eleanor does not truly care about the Wingriff family or the previous Margrave, he only cared about the blessing, exactly what the poachers wanted. He casually tells her that she should leave immediately. They will be departing soon, but the knights will come straight here once they hear a dragon's death cry. She should blend into the town and disappear from the kingdom. Eleanor stands frozen, before suddenly picking up a rock and hurling it at him, screaming, "How dare he!" He recoils from the rock, and in that instant, Melissa twists free, tumbling over the edge, thinking in disbelief that this cannot be happening. Even Eleanor stands frozen in shock. The rope stretches taut where it feeds through the metal spool. Melissa's body jerks to a sudden stop and she dangles helplessly. She lifts her gaze to the sky as dragons roar fiercely, the sound rolling through the valley. She realizes her scream must have drawn them and suddenly understands what is happening here. Every man around her has weapons raised, all aimed at the dragons. She cries out for the dragons to stay away to flee, but panic breaks out among the men when they notice the White Dragon Knight has appeared. She knows at once it is Hubert, heading straight toward her. A violent gust of wind slams her into the stone wall. Pain blooms across her face as it scrapes against the rock, but she forces down her cry. She cannot shout. She cannot provoke the dragons any further. Her eyes shift, catching sight of another group of dragons watching from a distance. Among them is the blue dragon. He looks at her with a sorrowful gaze, and she offers him a faint, sad smile, thinking that he has learned to fly properly after all. He is still so young. She worries the shouting and chaos might frighten him and silently hopes he will be all right. Above, the men scramble back into their carriage, fleeing in a panic. She wonders if the dragons are safe now. Then she feels it, the rope weakening. Fibers snap. It tears apart. Melissa begins to fall. She thinks, distantly, that it takes a surprisingly long time to reach the bottom of a cliff. The wind tears past her face, roaring in her ears, and she squeezes her eyes shut, unable to open them as she drops. This might be what flying on a dragon is like. Before she can truly fall, Melissa lands on something solid, and her eyes widen in shock. It is the blue dragon, cradling her small body on his wings, which are already growing longer. It hasn't even been a week since his birth, and the last time she saw him, he could barely hover above the ground. Yet here he is, the first to rush to her rescue. Though he might be a future king, he is still just a child, and every beat of his wings seems to demand all his strength. The dragons have waited a lifetime for one like him, and she knows she cannot let him risk himself for her. She cannot be afraid. She must remain calm. Gently, she whispers to him, thanking him for coming to save her, telling him it's all right now, that everything is going to be okay. He has already done more than enough, flying tirelessly to reach her. She reassures him not to worry. Then, trusting the next step, she lets herself slide from him, calling out for the White Queen and Lord Hubert, knowing that White Queen can handle the rest. Suddenly, Hubert swoops down atop the White Queen, catching her just in time. Their eyes meet, and Melissa's wide gaze searches for Hubert. He apologizes softly that it took him so long. She starts apologizing in return, telling him she screamed, agitated the dragons, and even made Blue fly even though he is still a child. Hubert hugs her tightly, reassuring her that she has nothing to apologize for, that what matters is her safety, and thanking her for protecting Blue. He whispers that she did a good job. Melissa's eyes fill with tears, and she begins to sob. The dragons growl around them, the deep, resonant chorus echoing the dragon's song of blessing, something Melissa recognizes from long ago. Later, Melissa awakens in a bed, disoriented, surrounded by an abundance of plants. Hubert's mother steps quietly into the room and comments that Melissa is finally awake, asking how she is feeling. Melissa replies that she will stay in bed a little longer, her injuries have not fully healed. She gasps when she realizes who is speaking. She introduces herself as Melissa, a maid at the Wingriff estate. Hubert's mother explains that Hubert already told her about Melissa and apologizes that she got caught up in the Wingriff family's problems. Melissa replies that it is unnecessary to apologize and clarifies that she is not Lord Hubert's lover. Hubert's mother assures her that it is no issue. Melissa notes that Lord Hubert should have mentioned it herself and asks if she is in Cruz. Hubert's mother confirms, adding that there are more doctors there than in Coda and that the White Queen carried her herself. Melissa expresses concern, realizing she was unconscious during her first flight with a dragon. Hubert's mother laughs gently, explaining that the White Queen knew they would be meeting the royal family's messenger and took Blue with her briefly so he could be seen. Melissa asks whether Blue is still present. Hubert's mother answers that he is not, he stayed only briefly, gave the messenger a scale as a token of his promise, and then returned to the valley. Melissa raises her eyebrow, a scale. Hubert's mother explains that the blue dragon can hear anyone who speaks to the scale, and that if someone wants to communicate with him, they can do so through the Wingriff family. If Blue is bonded with someone, he communicates directly through that person. Melissa asks whether the blue dragon dislikes humans. Hubert's mother assures her that Blue is kind, that Melissa treated him well and praised his scales, and that this is why he wanted to help her. Melissa sighs in relief, grateful that Blue does not hate humans. Hubert's mother asks if Melissa wishes to hear about her kidnapping. Melissa thinks she should tell Hubert's mother what the hunter and Eleanor said. Hubert's mother inquires whether the kidnappers told her anything. She already knows that, if their account is true, Lord Raymond was poisoned by his fiancée. Hubert's mother reassures Melissa that there is no need to worry, explaining that 3 days have passed since her rescue, and that Eleanor and her father have been arrested and are being interrogated. She reveals that this is how they learned the truth about Raymond's death, noting that he had always lived in solitude. He yearned to be a dragon knight, but his frail body wouldn't allow it. Hubert was supposed to assist him, but since he bonded with a white dragon, the kingdom's rulers wanted him to become a dragon knight. Meanwhile, she was too busy with work over here, so he ended up having to look after the dragon also by himself. When one thinks about his relationship with Eleanor, it is not so much that he loved her, but rather she was probably the only person who was there for him. That's why he trusted her, regardless of what her motive was. Melissa thinks Miss Eleanor did what the hunter told her and gave him poisoned sweets. Since he trusted her, he unsuspectingly ate them all. His mother says Eleanor said she did not intend to kill him. However, she doesn't think she can forgive her. It's not because she killed him, it is because she betrayed his trust. In addition to poisoning his son, she also caused the death of a dragon. That is a far greater crime in this kingdom. Melissa says she killed a dragon. His mother replies killing the person a dragon bonded with is the same as killing it. Raymond's dragon died after using its life force to place a curse on Eleanor. The White Queen has confirmed it too. Melissa realizes that the dragons must have grown to distrust and hate Eleanor after she began poisoning Raymond. That is why they avoided her, she thinks. But Lord Raymond allowed her to stay by his side, even knowing he might die. Hubert's mother gently tells her that she should have visited him more often, but now it is too late. Melissa quickly bows her head, apologizing for being insensitive, and asks what happened to the poachers who tried to harm the dragons. She recalls hearing dragons roaring above after she fell from the cliff and wonders if they are safe. Hubert's mother reassures her that the poachers were all arrested by the dragon knights. This surprises Melissa. Knights themselves were present. Hubert's mother confirms that they were, and though they were worried for her, they could not linger. They left a letter with Hubert, who will give it to her later. Melissa thanks her profusely. Hubert's mother adds that the dragons flying above the cliff suffered only minor wing injuries and are being treated in the Coda estate yard. She mentions that Eleanor's servant was severely wounded when one of the injured dragons retaliated, and they are still unsure if his life can be saved. The dragons had not attacked him or Eleanor while they remained in the Wingriff estate, friends of the dragons, but the moment they left, they were treated as enemies. That is what it means to be cursed by a dragon. Melissa pauses, stunned. Hubert's mother notes that even a dragon that almost killed someone is being treated with respect and care at the estate. Knowing their danger, Melissa is asked if she will still work for the family. She replies without hesitation that she will. She treats people and dragons alike. She was truly scared of those who kidnapped her, but that does not mean she will fear everyone. If permitted, she would like to meet the dragon her mother mentioned. Hubert's mother, surprised, smiles warmly, saying that everything she has heard about Melissa is true and she is more than welcome to continue working for them. Melissa thanks her, noting inwardly that her smile reminds her of Lord Hubert's. Hubert's mother asks if she may pose a question. Melissa agrees, promising to answer to the best of her ability. She asks whether Melissa remembers the first time she met the White Queen. Melissa nods, recalling that the first time she saw her, her father was carrying the dragon in his arms. Before she can continue, someone enters and clarifies that it was not her father. Lord Hubert stands there with a blank face. She repeats it wasn't her father, confused. He reminds her she knows about the rules regarding the dragon house, doesn't she? Does she think her father would ever be able to enter the dragon house? Back then, only specific people can enter the dragon house without asking for permission. People like dragon knights, former dragon knights who still work at the castle, the margrave and everyone who takes care of the dragons. Her father was just a regular knight. He did not bond with any dragon either. And now that she recalls it, Melissa's chest tightens. Was it really Hubert? He confirms it before she can finish the thought and asks if she remembers what happened next. She swallows hard, nodding. The White Queen had sung her a song, a melody that now rings eerily familiar, the same song she heard when the blue dragon was born and when he rescued her. Hubert's voice is low, almost reverent, as he explains that the song was the blessing. Dragons give their blessing to a couple to wish them happiness, usually only at weddings, yet the White Queen had given it the first time she laid eyes on her. Melissa freezes, shock threading through her chest, realizing the weight of his words. She whispers that she doesn't actually have the blessing, yet Hubert and his mother exchange a glance and tell her she does. Melissa remembers Eleanor had said all women who married into the family were blessed by a dragon and bore children for dragon knights, but Melissa now understands the truth. Dragons only approve a human's lover once. The revelation presses down on her chest like a stone. Hubert's apology comes quietly, almost like a confession. Melissa trembles, asking why he never told her before. His mother rises, saying they should talk privately, and before leaving she warns Hubert her patience is wearing thin, so he better not beat around the bush. Melissa rises as well, the room suddenly closing in. Hubert sighs, his voice tight with tension, explaining that she had been only 5 back then, far too young for him to consider as a wife. Melissa fidgets, asking hypothetically, what he would do if she chose to marry another man instead. He tells her he would try to convince the White Queen to allow it, and even if she refused, he would still wish for her happiness. Hubert's hand tightens around hers as he asks if there is anyone. She starts to think he doesn't think of her in that way. But then a pause. Before he declares any thought like that vanished when she told him she was leaving the castle after she came of age. The idea of her meeting another man, growing close to someone he had never known, made his pride, his duty as a knight, seem meaningless. His voice drops to a level as he tells her he decided to bring her with him to the margravate. He knew how to entice her but could not be certain they could change their relationship easily. That is why he had asked her to pretend to be his lover. He was not brave enough to tell her everything up front, not with her innocence intact. Hubert slowly reaches for her face, his fingers brushing lightly against her skin. He blushes faintly. All this time, he had assumed his feelings were one-sided, yet he wonders now, she must feel something for him too, even if only a little. Melissa's breath catches, and before she can stop herself, she blurts she does. Hubert's gaze locks onto hers as he asks the question that makes her heart hammer violently in her chest. Would she be willing to be his wife? Her face turns a vivid shade of red and her heart races so fast. Later, she stretches her arms, moving slowly to the window. Finally, she can move. She bumped right into the cliff a bunch of times, so she got a lot of bruises and fractures. Lord Hubert panicked when he learned that her chest hurt whenever she coughed. Even the White Queen was worried. What's most exhausting for her is that for the past month the servants have been treating her like she's already Lord Hubert's wife. Stepping out into the terrace, she greets White. She hasn't seen her this calm in a while. Before, White would sound very anxious whenever she talked to her. She must have wanted her to stay in bed and rest. Melissa tells the White Queen that the doctor says her wounds are fully healed now. She asks if Hubert came as well. A familiar voice answers from behind before the dragon can so much as shift. Hubert wishes her good morning and tells her sternly that she is still recovering, so she should go back inside. Melissa notices how he has been more protective lately. He doesn't let it show on his face but his actions say otherwise. Hubert smiles as he explains that he received a letter saying the estate is ready for her return, and that her belongings are prepared. He has come to take her back. She asks if they are returning to the estate together. He confirms that they are. For a moment, happiness blooms bright and immediate but it fades just as quickly. She asks if the White Queen will be returning as well. Hubert calls her name gently and tells her to look outside again, through the window. When she does, she sees a saddle fastened securely atop the White Queen's back. He explains they will be riding on White. She blinks, startled, and asks what prompted this decision. Hubert smiles, just a little. He says his mother mentioned that Melissa looked dejected when she learned she had fainted while White carried her back before. He adds that riding on White causes far less vibration, it will be gentler than a carriage. Before he can say more, Melissa throws herself into his arms, smiling brightly as she declares that she would love to ride the White Queen. For a heartbeat, Hubert freezes in shock. Then his expression softens, and he smiles back. Later, Melissa sits atop the White Queen as they take to the sky, waving enthusiastically at the staff below. The wind brushes past her face, cool and light. Hubert asks if this is her first time seeing the world from the sky, and what she thinks of it. She says it is gorgeous and marvels at how steady White's back feels, not shaking at all. Smiling wider, she asks if this breathtaking view is what dragons see every time they fly. Hubert smiles as well and replies that it is indeed, quietly maintaining a mind link with White to keep the ride slow. Melissa tells him that she will always stay by his side. For a brief moment, Hubert only looks at her. Then he says he is glad to hear that, his voice quieter than usual as he calls her name. Before she can respond, he leans in and kisses her, sudden and unannounced, stealing her breath away. When he pulls back, he meets her gaze and tells her that he loves her. Her heart pounds wildly, too fast and too loud. Almost immediately, he changes the topic and remarks that it is about time they descend, that they should not keep the people on the ground waiting, but before distance can fully settle between them, Melissa speaks. She confesses that she loves him too. Melissa hopes her mom and dad are both well by now. Their new apprentices are probably ready to step into the kitchen soon. The Dragon Knights really helped them out a great deal. Unfortunately, she was unable to meet them and wants them to give them her regards. She has had a lot of fun since she came here. There's a lot of dragons relaxing in the yard every day and they eat all the vegetables and fruits she gives them with relish. She didn't get to do it while she was at the castle, but her dream of riding the White Queen finally came true. Since she is so filled with joy, she will say it again. Her dream of riding on the White Queen finally came true. Her mother, reading the letter, asks her husband if the Margrave let their daughter ride on a dragon. Her father guesses maybe it was something urgent. A dragon is the fastest way to travel. The other possibility he doesn't want to think about. Her mother approaches the knights and asks them if they have a movement. She has some questions for all of them. What did they exactly help her daughter with? She demands they tell her everything. Meanwhile, Melissa greets the dragons warmly. She tells them that today's snacks are turnips and asks if they have ever eaten them before, explaining that they are sweet and juicy. One by one, she feeds them. Harry and Helen, staying away with the cart, are amazed that she can just walk up to a dragon. High above, Blue is circling the sky. He suddenly spots her and dives straight down toward her. For a brief moment, Hubert and the others tense, but Blue adjusts at the last second, landing neatly without so much as brushing her. Melissa smiles at him. She praises the landing and thanks him for coming to see her. Blue lifts his head proudly, as if he understands every word. There's a strict hierarchy among the dragons based on the colors of nature. The amber of the earth, the green of the trees and the purple of lighting, the white of the clouds. The closer the color to that of the sky, the rarer the dragon. A blue dragon has the color of the sky itself and has the highest rank, but only one is born every few 100 years. Blue nudges closer, clearly demanding more, and happily crunches down on another turnip. A short distance away, Hubert and the other knights watch in silence. Now that Hubert thinks about it, he has never heard Blue's voice before. He is the first dragon he cannot directly converse with after bonding with the White Queen. He can still understand him somehow, and White also tells him what he thinks. He wonders why he cannot hear his voice. Is it because he's still growing, or because he's the Dragon King? As Blue approaches, Melissa greets him cheerfully, wishing him a good morning and telling him that his wings have grown stronger after all. He has been flying from the valley to the estate every day. At this rate, she muses, he might molt soon. Molting is a dragon's first step toward adulthood, isn't it? She asks if he will stop being soft and fluffy afterward, sounding oddly disappointed. Hubert explains that the softness only comes from the scales a dragon is born with. Once Blue sheds his first set, his back will no longer be soft. He adds that Blue's ability to fly so freely is remarkable. Dragons normally do not leave their nests during their first year, yet Blue is only 3 months old, has not molted, and already flies entirely on his own. Being the Dragon King, he must be special. Melissa looks at Blue with open pride and tells him he is amazing. She then turns to the White Queen, greeting her warmly and saying she is glad to see her today as well. She asks whether she has eaten turnips before. Melissa used to bring them to her occasionally at the castle. From her basket, she pulls out a small floral corsage she told the White Queen about, made from fabric since fresh flowers are scarce here. She gently places it on the White Queen's paw and says it suits her beautifully. One of the knights steps forward hesitantly and mentions that a green dragon has been watching him. He asks if he might feed it. Hubert nods and tells Melissa to keep an eye on the other dragons while they move a little farther off. As the knight offers food, Hubert observes that the dragon is eating from his hand but still keeping its guard up. It does not wish to bond yet. He asks the knight whether he can stay a while longer. The knight agrees easily, noting that Hubert has already been providing food and lodging, though he admits he did not expect bonding with a dragon to take so long. It has been 2 months already. He glances at Melissa and asks why all the dragons seem to accept her so readily. Hubert answers calmly that the White Queen chose Melissa as his bride, and as a result, the dragons of the estate have united to protect her. The partner of the White Queen's knight is, in a way, cherished by all dragons. He adds that Melissa has also spent much of her life around dragon knights, learning how to interact with dragons naturally. Even so, her ability to draw them in without bonding is exceptional. Not even he can do that. The knight wonders aloud if she might become a dragon knight someday. Hubert replies that there is no record of female dragon knights. Dragons do not bond with women, though no one truly knows why. Even if one did, it would not answer all their questions. He adds that he has watched Melissa since she was a child, and she has never once expressed a desire to become a dragon knight. The fact that dragons gather around her without a bond is remarkable in itself. As long as they remain here, the dragons will always be watching. Patience, he reminds them, they must take things one step at a time. He then calls Melissa's name and tells her that a letter from his mother has arrived. He needs to return to the estate, as there is something he wishes to ask her. Almost as an afterthought, he asks whether she has ever taken a day off. The question confuses her. He explains that while she feeds the dragons every morning, estate servants are entitled to 3 days off each month. Harry suggested she receive an extra day to make up for her early work, yet Hubert realizes he has never once seen her take a break. She nervously says she had to recover from her injuries, but he did give her a month-long break and she is still just learning how to do her job. He says he doesn't care if it is her first day at work, she has to take a day off when she's supposed to. There's no point in pushing herself and getting hurt again. He pats her on the head and says besides, if she doesn't take a day off, she won't get to fly in the sky with him. Melissa echoes the words, her eyes lighting up, excitement bubbling over before she can stop it. Hubert says that the White Queen is looking forward to it as well. She has been urging him to invite Melissa for some time now. Why not fly together on her next day off? He adds, almost firmly, that she will be taking a day off in the coming days. That is an order. And when that day comes, they will go for a short ride through the sky. Melissa laughs, bright and unguarded, and says she would love nothing more. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.